Oh my god, what do we have? We have an actual researcher here. Hard at work.
Who's
Hard at work.
this?
What's this? What are you looking at? Who may you be? This thing sounding. Hello.
Who is this?
We're not
They're
letting them
on-
getting up. They're on mute.
They're on mute.
Hello.
Hello. Hi. You've been waiting patiently while we've
Oh,
just been like rambling.
I haven't. Yeah, I've been having fun. It's really hard to see the stars when the sky is like daytime, but sometimes you catch a cloud and you can just, when you're zoomed in real close to clouds, there's some really pretty patterns in there.
Yeah. And you can see the moon too.
Yes.
during the
Oh my
day.
gosh. Yes, you can.
Isn't there like some planets that you can like see?
Yeah, not the ones that I really like though.
Oh yeah. Like what are your favorite planets?
It's, I don't know what you guys would call it, but it's you can't see it with any observable telescopes on Earth.
Whoa.
It's where I'm from.
Ooh. Yeah. Oh yes. You are the research subject we exchanged. Possibly. Possibly.
Do you miss your home?
Not really, only because Earth is just so fascinating. Like honestly, when you look around and you see all this stuff, like anywhere that you are, the only reason you can see that is because your eyes are catching the light that is reflected off those things. Like the sunlight is bouncing off this table, for example, and then into your eyeballs, and then your brain is interpreting that light and going, "Oh, it's a table. That's what this is. This is a table." But you only know that because light is bouncing off it. Same with like bushes. You see the green because the green light's what's bouncing off the bush. And so,
Unless
like,
you're colorblind, in which case.
well,
all
yes,
of
that's
it.
right. And that's when like the human body is so fascinating to me because like everybody is just so different. Everyone has such a unique perspective on literally everything from their perspective. So some people are like colorblind, some people have like physical limitations. Like my joints are super stretchy. They're way too stretchy. They don't hold themselves together properly. And that is a genetic mutation. And there's so many interesting genetic mutations. And in fact, like genetic mutations are how the life that we see now came to be. That's like the process of evolution.
Yep.
It's just so interesting. So no, I don't really miss my home planet because this one is just absolutely fascinating.
I love that a visitor from another world can do a better Australian accent than most Americans.
Well, it's interesting because when we travel, because my planet's full of travelers, when we travel, we put our consciousness into a body from the planet that we're on. So I wouldn't be able to exist here if not for this human body that I'm in. And yeah, it's just interesting that I grew up with an Australian accent in this, but it's hard to explain.
I mean, what does an Australian accent even mean anyway? I say someone with a super ambiguous, where the heck are you from accent? Accents are weird.
They are. They're kind of musical though. Like what I think is really cool about an accent is that when we're exposed to language, our ears are like listening to all the nuances of tone and grammar, and we just like as children, as infants, you pick it up and it becomes how you communicate. And so then when you learn, say, English from a non-English speaking background, then the accent that you hear is the music of your original language coming through English.
Or if you're like me and your parents also migrated, it just ends up being a big remix of everything.
Remixes are cool though.
Yeah. Well, it's pie time.
It is pie time! Yay!
Which is what we've been like stalling for time for.
Yes.
But
Okay.
You've got a story for us of your
Yes.
adventures. And
Okay.
we will let you take the floor.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Thank you
Oh,
for
yeah.
letting me tell people about what I'm passionate about.
Oh heck yeah.
So the reason I really liked pie time, 3, or 14 past 3, is because it's the first 3 digits of the number pi, 3.14, and then it goes like 159, blah, 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 blah. It's a number that actually goes forever.
Yeah.
And theoretically, inside this number that goes forever, you could find any other number, like the date of your birth, your social security number, like every number is contained within an infinite number, right? And that's just so cool. Pie time, exactly. And then it's also food. And I love food. The experience of eating, like flavor,
Oh, yeah.
like the brain and the tongue and like taste buds just all come together to make this marvelous experience that is like flavor and smell. Oh, I'm just so interested and inspired by like the human experience and like the nature that humans live in, like trees and plants, and I could ramble forever, and I probably will. But yes, pie time. Pi is a number that goes forever and ever and ever, kind of like me talking. And like what I love about maths is that it's elegant, like 1 + 1 = 2, 2 + 2 = 4, unless you get into like irrational numbers and that kind of stuff, but we won't go there. And then like there are a lot of different opinions around like what reality is and what the universe is, and like whether it was created or whether it just like got born itself. And like I don't think I know the answers. I'm just curious and interested. But one thing that we can see by observing the patterns of existence around us is that it's quite easily describable with maths. And so I like to think that it's kind of this equation unfolding. So the universe around me is this equation unfolding. Yeah. It's just really fascinating to me. Like plants grow in spirals, and color is vibration, and sound is vibration, and it's just I could just go on and on about the science of these things, but I can't really remember all the terms for it,
Yeah.
But yes, I was wondering if any of the people that are watching this have any questions. I did see someone was like, is my birthday inside a pie? And I guess like maybe it could be if you assign your birthday to like some, what's the word when you take like a sentence and you like put it through a code, like when they did like Morse code and stuff? A cipher, that's the word, thank you. If you put your birthday into a cipher that then equaled the atomic mass and composition of a pie, then yes.
I mean, what kind of pie would it be? I'd put mine in an apple pie because I love apple pies.
Oh my gosh, apple and cinnamon are 2 of my favorite flavors, like combinations. Oh,
okay,
so good.
so this is getting, I'm taking time away from your story, but I just have to tell you this. I bought a bunch of like the Coles frozen apple snack pie thing to eat later. But I also got some ice cream yesterday because I'm having a bit of a bad mood. Trying to cheer myself up. And I was trying to get a different flavor ice cream, but they were out. So they said, what you have as a replacement, said, can I try your cinnamon buttermilk? And it
sounds
tastes
delicious.
exactly like a cinnamon roll. And I'm thinking like that ice cream plus the apple pie would be an amazing.
Yes, and you'd warm the apple pie up, and then the ice cream would like melt and go all creamy. Oh my gosh, my mouth
I'll
is
have to
watering.
report back later. Anyway, go on.
Oh.
This is not the me story talking about pies.
That's okay. Someone has asked what the best coffee shop in all of the universe is. Now, coffee is an interesting thing because it's quite particular to Earth. It grows as a coffee bean, and then there's a whole bunch of different varieties, and how you roast it makes different flavors, and then even like how you extract it, like different waters and like different temperatures and pressures and all that kind of stuff.
Come for a cafe while you talk about coffee.
Oh my god, yes. Take me there.
Hang on, we're just waiting for It's like we just disappear. Anyway, go on.
So I think like the best coffee shop for me, a lot of my like favorite things come from experiences. And I remember my skills as a storyteller were utilized one time at another festival, and I met up with the people, and it was actually in Melbourne that I met up with these people. I'm going to take a seat.
Yes,
Oh, I can't get to it. Hang on. I've got all the way
Oh, yeah,
around.
sorry.
that's
the
okay.
layout is a bit tricky, so pick whatever. We'll understand you
good.
trying to sit with us.
Exercise is great.
Yes.
how wonderful that we have muscles. So yes, the best coffee shop. So I was the place was called Second Story Studios. I think it's in Collingwood. I'm not so good with geography. Gets confusing when you've been all over like the known galaxy. But it was
what are place names when?
Yeah, what are place names when everything is just maths anyway? So yeah, there was this little coffee shop just down the street from Second Story Studios, and it was just, I don't know, something about it was really lovely. I really enjoyed the atmosphere there, and I would go there and, you know, open up the laptop and wonder how to communicate with the device not telepathically, and remember that I had fingers, and then send an email. And the written word is so fascinating. Like, we're expressing a concept through what we call a word, and we're recording that word in symbols, and it's just like language, and it's so versatile. There's so many different ways that you can speak, and so many different things that you can write, and the way that you express your... Anyway, I'm getting distracted. So this coffee shop, right, it was just so lovely. And the owner of the coffee shop was really sweet and kind and very welcoming, you know, and I almost came out, you know. You're one of the nicest humans I've ever met, but I thought that might be a bit confronting for people, you know. they meet an actual
if
alien.
someone told me that, I'd be like, thank you, but you might not be accurate in part of that assessment.
Maybe. But yes, so I went to this lady and I said, I really love your establishment. It's such a beautiful little coffee shop. And we just ended up having like a 15-minute conversation. People end up talking to me a lot, probably because I ask so many questions, like just so interested about their experience, and I'm so keen to offer my experience. But yeah, so I spoke to this lady for like 15 minutes, and I walked out of that coffee shop just feeling really happy and like, you know how you have those little moments, those little exchanges with people, like you're on, I don't know, if you're on like public transport and you just smile at somebody and it strikes up a conversation, and yeah, it's just really nice. So a lot of my favorite things come from specific experiences that I have. So my favorite flavor ice cream is cookies and cream because it reminds me of Oreos, and Oreos are vegan, and like,
are they universal constant?
Yeah. And they make me feel, I don't know, it's like a nostalgia thing. It reminds me of being young and trying new flavors and learning, you know, what it is to be human. Right. I don't know, just something about cookies and cream is just like joy for me.
What has been the most surprising thing you found about being on it?
Oh, the most surprising thing was realizing that not everybody thought like me. And then that really opened my eyes to like how different people have different perspectives. And then I started to try and understand other people's perspectives, and like some people's perspectives are really difficult to understand, and some people's perspectives are really fascinating and obscure or beautiful or cute, or, you know, there's just so many things to take in when you start thinking about other people's perspectives. So yeah, that was really surprising, because like the planet that I'm from, there's like a little bit of telepathy, so we kind of share a lot of similar thought patterns and perspectives on things, because it's all very science-based. There's no, you know, my culture doesn't really have a creator myth or belief. I see someone ask if they're all mermaids on your planet. So on our planet, we take the form, like physically, of the, I guess, what's the best word? Like mood, I guess, would be the best word. So like if you're in the mood for experiencing an aquatic lifestyle, then you might take on that form of like a mermaid, because that's like a bit of both. Like something about mermaids, you know, I know on Earth they're called cryptids, cryptic animals that we don't really know a lot about. But yeah, because my people are travelers and explorers and researchers, we've kind of gathered as much, what's the word, like examples of life from all around the galaxy. Yeah, so we see a whole bunch of different things, and I think that goes back to what I was saying about being surprised on Earth about finding different perspectives, because I think humans are really individual. Like we. I say we. I've been a human for too long. You see, it's starting to
You're one of
feel
us now.
normal. But yeah, we're very much in our head, if that makes sense. Like our perspective, what's the word I'm looking for? The like taste and smell and sight is a sense. Our senses inform our experiences, which is exquisite. It's absolutely beautiful to be able to like physically touch something and tell that its texture is rough or smooth, and like the smell of fruit or of roses. Oh, the smell of roses.
Those are my favorite.
I have a
flowers.
story about roses actually, but that's going to be shared a bit later.
Yes.
But yeah, the fact that, what was I saying? Our senses inform our experience and our perspective, and everybody's brain is so radically unique and individual. And of course, we have similarities. There are things that, you know, we all have eyes. Well, unless we don't, I guess. And see, this is the thing that surprised me so much, is that it's really difficult to pin down, I guess, constants, things that we all have in common, because it's almost, I don't know, is it definite that there's always an exception to the rule? Like, all humans have a heart, unless they don't, but then they're not a human, are they? Is that like one of the core things of being human, is that you have a heart? Or, I don't know, I'm waxing philosophical here.
I mean, it's interesting, right? We talk about life on other planets, and obviously we've proven that to be true because you're here. But there's always this assumption that if life on other planets must work the same way Earthlings work, or they're carbon-based and they need water and oxygen, and those are markers of signs of life on other planets. But how do we know for sure that that's what other life in other planets operate? You know, like what if they're not visible by light? What if they're maybe they're different chemical properties or stuff we as humans can't perceive at all? Yeah.
So there's an animal that lives in the ocean. It's called a mantis shrimp, and they can actually see so many more colors than a human eye. And when you take the example of how life evolved on Earth, things started to perceive light, and then they started to perceive like color, and it was all about either finding food or finding something to mate with. And so like that was the drive for all these what's the word I'm looking for? Novel appearances in physical form. And that's quite particular to Earth. You know, we have other life forms in other environments, and some of those are non-physical entities that still have a consciousness. And in human like belief systems and folklores and mythologies, some of these non-physical entities get given names because they have interacted with Earthlings before. Like some people might call them angels, some people might call them like divas. There's so many different ways of understanding this stuff, and I'm just so fascinated by it, because in my quest to understand how the universe works and gather as much information as I can about that, so that I can make an informed decision, and like I try and educate myself as much as I can. And if something doesn't, like, how do I put this? It's not that it doesn't make sense to me, but I don't know how to say that. It's when something is like contrary to something that I've already taken in as fact, then it's like measuring it, like, oh, okay, well, something about this is real or fact to somebody else. So how do I absorb the value in that when it doesn't align with my own thing? But yeah, that's just maybe having too open a mind, and if you have too open a mind, then it might fall out.
Right, but at least you can work out where they're coming from.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that I love the most about being alive, is that I have the opportunity to work out where things are coming from and where someone's perspective comes from. And a lot of mine comes from being nature, and being nature, because we are.
Being nature. Oh.
Yeah. I'm not
We're all
separate.
flowers.
Like, I am separate to a tree and I'm separate to a flower, but it's a carbon-based life form. Being human has a very particular conscious experience, but like, what is the conscious experience of a tree? Sure, it doesn't have a brain, but it still has chemical processes that respond to environmental conditions, and that's basically what our brain is. It's just that one of our environmental conditions is that we have, I guess, like sentience or free thought, or like, I don't know how people would like to describe it, but I definitely think that like we are as much nature as anything else. Oh, I've just seen that someone said my dog has a heart and he's definitely not human. You're so right. We have Animal Crossing too, as something else that
Right?
somebody said.
Like, you know, we saw the evolution of the villages here in Animal Crossing,
Yes.
where it goes, you know, it's so much of our usual Earthling museums stop at the animals not being like our villages, you know, just like you get stuck one level of evolution. But here's, you see, like, you know, Mira the rabbit, or Cat the cat, or
Yeah.
you know, Kabuki the other cat, and how they've all become their own thing. Or Kick is Slider, a musical dog who has a heart.
Oh, I remember someone telling me once that animals couldn't dream. They didn't have, like, they said they didn't have a big enough brain, and I was like, are you, like, this is genuinely something you think right now? Because I don't know. I've witnessed the emotional range of a dog. You know, when you know, growing up human and engaging in nature and trying to experience as many different perspectives as I can. There was I've made a few canine friends, and I've made some feline friends, and there was this, you know, there was this one dog who was very old, and then it is a little bit of a sad story because they pass away. But the puppy, you know, so there was one dog that was very old, and then there was the puppy, and the puppy kind of learned how to be a dog from the dog, and then learned how to be a human from the humans, right? And so then when the old dog passed away, because everything passes in some fashion, it is sad because we experience something called grief and loss, but they've just returned to the cycle that is the infinite exchange of resources throughout the universe. But this little puppy and I went through a grief cycle together. So I watched this dog, you know, remember its friend and get sad that its friend wasn't going to be there anymore. And I would comfort this dog. And then when I got sad that this friend wasn't there, this dog would be right there by my side, like pushing its nose up into my hand to let me know that it was there for me. And it was it was a really wonderful experience to connect with this animal, like through a grief process. So like animals definitely grieve, and animals definitely have a depth of experience that, you know, it's difficult to understand. This what I'm saying about, you know, being surprised that human experience is so like unique in its individual perspective on reality. Like we can't understand what somebody else is thinking at any point in time. The only evidence we have that any of this is real is that we can engage with it and it can engage back, yeah? But how does the world look like to a bee? And, you know, is like, are they just operating on instinct, or do they actually have like thought processes? And obviously they'd be very different to human thought processes, because humans have hands that can interact with their environment in different ways to the way a dog does. A dog uses their mouth primarily. So yeah, I think about these kind of things a lot, and I think a lot.
I mean, bees, they dance to communicate.
Oh, it's so cool, isn't it? And like the different, like the heat that they produce when they buzz, and like the different frequencies with which they buzz. I remember the first time I saw a bumblebee, and it took them forever to figure out how a bumblebee flew, but it's like kind of, I got it. You know, they spin their wings and they create little vortexes, and that's why they like bumble around.
Now I'm gonna try to fly.
Yeah, this is my figure 8 flying.
I love these balloons. Actually, I have. Hang on, let me.
There's a couple of people talking about their dogs dreaming, running in their sleep.
Oh, dreams. Whenever he runs, he kicks me. And puppy has dreams all the time. Isn't it beautiful? That's. I've actually got. Hang on. Let me...
My cats have come in now as well.
There you go.
They're like, we know we're talking about us.
Yeah, they can hear
I saw that
me
you had
thinking
green
about
balloons. I got some pink
How
ones. 'Cause
BC flowers is so cool.
it's so like I sometimes like melt my brain when I think about how creatures that have compound eyes, how do their brains decipher those images? And it just, oh my gosh, is that?
That's for you.
Oh,
Both
thank
of them.
you.
Little gifts.
Oh, what is it? I'm gonna open it right now.
It's
Oh.
a bit random, so it's a surprise to me as well. Hey,
Check
coat.
me out. It looks so
Nice.
cool. Oh my gosh,
A
thank you.
display of creativity.
What's this one? Oh, okay. So, I'm a big nerd for. I'm rich.
You are. As I said,
Oh my
they are
goodness.
in more ways than one.
Thank you, thank you. That's so wonderful and kind. Oh my gosh. I've lost my train of thought now. I was overcome with gratitude.
Oh, well, we are very
Oh.
grateful that you are here anyway.
That's right. I was going to show you because, like, I could nerd out about animals and trees and, like, literally all those things. But one of the things that nature does for me is it inspires me, like with art. I love to create things, and so some of the things that I create are, like costumes. So this was inspired by the Nooks. I'm a Nook representative.
We should do this on a Nook's Cranny.
Oh my gosh, we should. This outfit, everything was donated to me by my sister when I first started playing Animal Crossing. She's a sweetheart. I love her very much. She's a phenomenal artist, actually. This is one I'm working on at the moment.
Fancy.
Fancy.
Nice.
I love it.
This is like... This is the fancy one I already had finished.
We gotta go together a little bit.
It's got a little bit... Oh! We could definitely walk down a runway together.
We do have a runway.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yes, of sorts. Here, come with me. We do have a bit of a runway.
Yes! One of the things
Wrapped in the balloons. Oops.
One of the things I love about like changing your outfit in Animal Crossing is the little poses that they make.
Yeah.
They like pout their lips and
Ta-da!
pop out their hips and music. Okay, so music is super fun, and it connects to like all the things about how we communicate. Is
I'll get the music on. It's a bit.
sound.
It's pink. Tanisha needs to come back and see on this pic.
Oh, you had a secret entrance.
Do you
Side
have
of
a
stage.
request, or are you fine with the shuffle function?
I am fine with shuffle. I just love
Okay,
music.
ooh.
It's so cool. And music is maths. There's so much maths in music. And music is art. It's all about expression. There's just so much to love about music. What else do I have? Oh, a tuxedo dress. So when I was young, I used to dream about wearing a tuxedo dress. And obviously, I was born in what everybody called a male body. And then, so like growing up, obviously, the idea of me wearing a dress was, undesirable for the little town I grew up in. And when I saw, I might get this name wrong. I'm kind of bad at names. Billy Porter wear a tuxedo
Yeah.
gown on the red carpet. Oh my gosh, I melted. It was a moment for me. It was really touching to see someone wearing something I'd always wanted to wear and being accepted for that or being celebrated for that. Yeah.
Aw.
Oh, you have a mask.
Yeah.
Yes.
I wanted to
you-
match everyone in my black.
Oh, I'll go back to suspended.
Meanwhile, I'm just cycling through all of these. What? Let's just go back to a little bit about your home planet.
Oh yes.
Is everyone on your home planet explorers like you, or are you relatively unique in that regard?
No, everyone is pretty much. It's like I don't know if it's like hardwired into our DNA or well, it's interesting because DNA isn't found everywhere that you find life. Some life is like non-physical entities, not non-physical conscious beings that influence their surroundings through things that aren't physical. It's really interesting when you meet and communicate with these beings. But it's kind of we've been doing it for so long as a species that there's like a bit of what's it called, like mass, not amnesia, but like our original forms. Like people get a bit confused about what they are or could have been.
Yep.
But because like we as like I guess you could say a global culture, are just so naturally inclined to explore, and like curiosity was just a huge part of I guess our evolution. And like we kind of shaped our evolution in a way. Like we kept pushing the boundaries of what we could be and what we could become and what we could explore, and the known, our star cluster, our solar system, our planet. Once we knew everything there was to know about that stuff, well, everything that we could know at the time about that stuff, because as technology expands and perspectives expand, you learn more and more. And oh my gosh, this place is amazing.
This is just a small sample
Oh,
of what you can find on Earth. We have
Do you know-
we have like an associate named Gulliver who shows up every once in a while. He gets stranded on our island,
oh,
and in
he's
return for rescuing him, he gives us a little token of appreciation. Although I do not know how he managed to fit an entire Leaning Tower of Pisa in. his
right.
pocket.
And so this is really interesting. The idea of things that are built. So like humans build things. Humans love to build things, and like building dwellings, building significant like items of significance, like the Easter Island heads. And I'm sure that they actually have a proper name. That's just the name that they got given by a certain group of people. And the Sphinx, and like humans build these things to mean something, but humans as a physical being aren't built. They are grown. Like a bush grows, and then butterflies grow, and humans grow. But like, what do they grow from?
But I mean, we seem to be coming to a future now of cyborgs and being able to build your own,
Yes.
which I'm looking forward to.
Yeah. Right.
This is a bit of a weird story, but a few years ago I needed to get a halter test done, which wasn't a big deal in the end, but it was basically a portable ECG machine that checks your heart rate. And you might have seen this in hospitals. Sometimes they plug you up to a machine that reads, your heartbeat. So this was a portable one that I had to wear for 24 hours or so. And at first they were like, oh, like if you want to hide the wires under your dress, you can. Like, you don't have to if you're feeling self-conscious about it. But I loved how it looked on me. People talk about the feelings of gender euphoria, and that was probably one of the first few times I actually felt pretty affirmed. I was like, oh yes,
Amazing.
this feels right, and I was very sad to let it go. I was like, I would be happy being wired up like this.
I just love that we can make choices about our bodies,
Autonomy.
Yeah, and like customize them as well, and I don't know, do whatever you want with your bodies. Can't wait until it's way more accessible.
Yes. There's so I believe the term is called transhumanism, when we start to move past what humans, humans naturally are, a physical being that are built with animal cells and have bone structure and muscles and blood and digestion. All these things make up a human physically. And transhumanism is when we move beyond that. And we kind of already are cyborgs, because we augment our memory with Google, and we augment our communication capacity with a telephone.
And then you have a lot of people who get augmentations for access purposes.
Absolutely.
Prosthetics, glasses.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's interesting. Like, I find the transhumanism movement a little frustrating, I guess, sometimes, because it's so full of clueless white dudes who just don't have much of an imagination, when there's so much potential. Like we already see with disabled people who are rocking it with all of their augmentations, but it's seen as like, oh, you poor thing, you have to have a fake leg, oh, a wheelchair, oh, how terrible. When no, this is hack the system.
Yep, exactly.
The system did not work for them, so they made it work. And this is, with trans and gender diverse people who also, you want to talk about transhumanism, and yet so much of contemporary transhumanism is cis dudes.
Yeah. Well, like there's that thing you said there about potential and possibility, and like why limit yourself so much? Like, I understand humans like to categorize things. It makes understanding things easier. But like when you expand things like vocabulary around gender identity and expression, when you expand those things, your ability to communicate the intricacies of your consciousness just becomes exponential. And once we can communicate the intricacies of our consciousness, understanding each other's perspectives becomes so much easier, or at least like reachable. Like you can attain a level of understanding of each other when you expand your vocabulary to include diverse experiences.
You know, like you were talking about earlier, like people have different perspectives and it might seem wrong or seem like, oh, this contradicts what I know. But once you think about it more, it's like, oh, I see where they're coming from.
Yeah. And like in terms of potential, like you look at the life cycle of a star, okay? Stars are giant balls of gas that are burning, and they start off with an element called hydrogen, and then it gets hot enough that the hydrogen burns, and then because the heat in the star is so intense, the hydrogen atoms collide and become helium and deuterium and so on and so forth, until all the fuel has been burned up in the star. There's not enough expansive forces from the burning of this fuel to counteract the gravity that happens when mass comes together, and it collapses in on itself, and often will, well, depending on the size and mass of the star, will explode, go supernova, and then become a, you know, Magellanic cloud or a I can't remember what the name of the ones that create stars and planets are called. But if a star is big enough, it creates other stars when it goes supernova and other planets. So the fact that Earth exists, and I understand there are a lot of different cultural understandings of how life came to be, but from observing it, like, you know, something like the Big Bang, that could have been the mechanism that some being used to create reality. I don't know if it's necessarily separate. So, you know, at least how my people understand things, when a star went boom, and then Earth could be made because that star went boom. So technically we all have stardust running in our veins, which is just such a cute little idea. The fact that all of us have the common ancestor of a star that went bang. I read something the other day that said when dust explodes hard enough, the dust starts to think about itself. I was just
Wasn't people talk about computers being like, we tricked a rock to think using electricity?
Yeah.
We have
love
a
that.
question for you.
Yes,
From
please.
Amerasu, who firstly said they can't wait until they get a tail because they feel more of themselves with a foxtail.
That's
But they also-
adorable.
Their question is, they use if your people use primarily telepathy, is it more visual or words? How do you think? Also,
Oh,
thank you, Jewel Box. Have fun with Turkey Day. But go on.
yes. No, by all means. Thank you for being here and witnessing us. But this is a really interesting question, because when we think about communication, we can only come from our perspective, right? So the people that are speaking right now are speaking English. So we're using the English system to communicate verbally, which is a hearing language. And then, you know, you take the verbal out, and then you've got language like sign language, you've got body language, non-verbal communications. And all of this communication is about conveying an idea or a concept. And when you strip verbal and oral and image out of that, then you just have concept. And it's kind of difficult to explain from a like verbal perspective or a
Right,
language
you try to
perspective.
use words to talk about something that is not words.
Yeah. So like you can communicate feelings without trying to describe the feeling. You could, like, the person just feels it. They know what you're feeling because you're communicating the feeling. Yeah, I'm so glad that made sense to you, Amarasu. It's really hard to explain what language becomes when there's no like language structure to it. So like, actually, there's a really
you got
interesting movie that was made on Earth. I can't remember what it's called. Was it The Arrival? Anyway, there's these
Arrival, yes, and it's
And
like
that-
non-linear.
non-linear
Yeah.
language. So it's conceptual, conveying a concept without linear time. So they don't have, what are they called? There are structures in language that give things a linear like time and place inside the sentence. Oh, you studied linguistics? I have so much respect for that. Language is so fascinating to me.
I mean, a few
But-
different cultures have like also different takes on time. Like apparently,
That's right.
in different Chinese languages, their ideas of time is different than ours.
Yeah.
Like the past is in front of you, the future is behind you, or something like, because you can't see it.
Wow. Yes. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. I can, because, okay, yeah. Because I love this idea that, like, the experience of time makes a human a time traveler because you
We
can.
travel 1 second a second.
Yeah, well, we only exist in the now, but we can remember the past and we can imagine the future. So our consciousness can travel through time through these experiences of remembering or imagining. But like our physical body only ever exists in the now, which then goes into all this quantum physics stuff about photons and atoms popping in and out of existence constantly, and how, you know, our cells are constantly in motion and dying and being reborn and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, language and the way that we understand language and communicate about language, it's just so fascinating, especially when you think about like time and non-linear representations of concepts. You know, taking out imagery from your vocabulary. Like if you tried to explain a concept to somebody without using visual metaphor, would you struggle with that? And then you look at the people who don't have a visual context for their living arrangement, you know, their body doesn't have as good a sight as yours, like whether that's colorblind or, you know, 10% vision or however you want to describe those experiences. How, like, the language that is visual, they don't connect with that in the same way. You know, like learning sign language, understanding that it's a visual language as opposed to an audio, like hearing
Auditory?
language. Auditory, thank you, yes. Sign language isn't an auditory language, so it's all about visual sign, like visual language. So it's just really interesting when you start to break down, you know, what is your vocabulary, where does it come from, what does it mean, and then how do you oh, there's a word I'm looking for, like not transpose, that's about music.
Communicate?
But, like communicate, but in different contexts. How do
I
you
mean,
communicate?
interesting. We talk about this
transform.
here.
That's a good one, translate, yeah. What was that?
We're talking about it in the context of Animal Crossing, where sure you can have words, but it's not the most common way of communicating because it takes so long to type on
Oh,
this
yeah.
device. But it feels like we have all, so much of the player base has developed a language around these emotes, right? Like the one that says joy, so many players has used it as a thank you, or spin around means come follow me, I got to take you somewhere. And
Yeah.
you know, there's an apology one, but because it's a bow, people use it as a bow. They don't think about necessarily, say, the original Japanese context, whereas you bow as an apology. You know, like people have come up, they've used this visual language of Animal Crossing emotes as a way to communicate when typing is hard.
Yes. Yeah. And they can mean so many different things. Like when I tell my Blue Rose story later, I use the emotes to like add to the story, because like there are the words, but then there are also like actions that go along with it. And storytelling's probably like, oh, when someone asked if like all the people on my planet were explorers, yes, we
That
are
would be
all
me, yes.
That was you. Thank you.
Yes.
Sorry, I time is strange.
Oh yeah, I'm an
Memory is
explorer too,
weird.
so who may or may not be from here, so I get it.
Oh, fascinating. We'll go into that later. Yes, we all are explorers and researchers, and curiosity drives us, but like that we express that in different ways. So like I express that in storytelling. I'm a storyteller. You know, someone else from my life might be an inventor. They might take their curiosity and their exploration of reality and invent things that, you know, either help or explain things in different ways. And yeah, so there's different ways that we express our explorative nature, I guess you could say. Mine is in storytelling. So language is a big part of mine, and a lot of my inspiration comes from nature. And just this drive to understand and explain things. Not so like, oh look, I understand this. Look at how clever I am. Not that, but just like it's born from a wonder, like a childlike state of wonder at reality. Like, wow, I get to experience whatever this is. And you can just, you know, I just know it's cool. And I think about it a lot. and I come up with ideas about things, and I offer them, and that's all they are. They're just offerings. I don't know if I have the arrogance to say I know the truth, you know, but I just definitely have. Yeah. But that's just an offer. Like, this is how I see things sometimes, and tell me how you see things, and yeah, we express that in different ways, my people.
So how did you discover that storytelling was your method?
Oh, well, basically, all I've ever done is talk in stories. All I've ever done is talk, really. But communicating was always something that I didn't necessarily struggle with communicating myself, but I struggled with how other people communicated. So I went through a lot trying to understand how communication works, because for me, I would speak and it was almost like people thought I had an ulterior motive, and I was like, I'm just being honest. And honesty seemed like a rarity thing. Like, people didn't trust you when you were honest or something like that. And I was like, oh, maybe this person has been hurt, or, you know, maybe they you know, do a lot of humans not trust each other? And so I went through a lot of trying to understand how communication worked. And I think that just was fueled by this desire to communicate. And then through that, all these explorations in communication, I just found that when I speak, people listen, and I'd tell a lot of stories and people would listen, and then I'd ask people and they'd speak to me. Like, people open up to me. I'm one of those people that, and I use the word people, like I'm in a human body, but I'm a people, you know. A dog isn't a dog body, but it's a people. It's
totally
like a personality.
You know, Tanisha would totally say like cats are people, which I agree.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'm one of those people that people open up to. Like, animals tend to trust me, and people tend to share things. You know, there's something about my presence that's comforting, I guess. And when I first started like doing performances, like using my storytelling as a way to take audiences on a journey, something about that transportation, like, it's a temporal experience. It's fleeting, unless you've recorded, of course, but it's not the same as a live performance. It's temporal, it's fleeting.
It's a way to capture time.
Yeah, absolutely. But that moment, like, if you're in the audience when someone's telling a story, that's a very unique experience. And you could be on the left side or the right side, and so you'd have a different perspective on the expression and the movement and all that kind of stuff. And when I started doing that and I started getting interested in that, it just opened up this whole world of like, wow, how else can you tell stories? So I did a little bit of dancing. I quite like dancing and movement. And then, you know, that thing I was saying about my my body being a bit too flexible, dancing and movement became a bit tricky, a bit like maybe dangerous. So I shifted from that, and then things like what you guys are doing here with this amazing phenomena of putting a festival on inside a game. Like, digital storytelling became really fascinating to me, and it actually feels more familiar to do digital storytelling because of, you know, my home planet and how we communicate. We just like put ideas out there and people that are interested pick them up. That kind of feels like digital storytelling, and this phenomena that is social media, which overwhelms me sometimes because it's not just picking up thoughts like we did on my home planet. You actually have to read all of those thoughts, and it's like the visual processing center in your brain gets overloaded sometimes, especially if you have processing you know, complications or considerations. Like I have an auditory processing consideration that I have to think about, but like from my home planet, those things weren't considerations. You didn't have to worry about visual or auditory processing things. Like, your brain just picked up concepts and went with them and shared them. So yeah, social media is really interesting in that sense because we can share so much about our perspectives, but it can be a bit overwhelming in terms of the sheer quantity of ideas that you have to process visually. But as a digital storytelling platform, I am fascinated by it. So I've just started really exploring that and really pushing into that. And, you know, the situation with, you know, dare I say it, COVID-19 really forced a lot of people, I think, to consider those different different ways of telling their stories. And yeah, I'm sorry. I know it feels like he who must not be named, you know. You don't say it or something. It's like saying you know, the Q word in a hospital, or naming the Scottish play on stage. There's just certain things that you shouldn't say. But, you know, superstition is an interesting thing because we're assigning meaning to an event that might not have that meaning, but it might also have that meaning. You know, that's the wonder of possibility, is what's possible and then what is definitively not possible. Humans don't have wings. That's something that we know as fact, but Yet, exactly, transhumanism. Oh my god. See, this conversation is so cyclical. Cyclical?
Everything is like-
Yeah, everything always comes back around.
Well, thank you so much. We could go on forever.
I could,
And maybe
literally.
we will. Yes, but your story will be back later this evening.
Yes.
People want more Silica. If people want to talk to you more and continue these conversations, how do they do that?
Oh, well, through this, you can see my little... I've got that Twitter thing that you guys have called Hairy Mermaid. I did that thing, you know how some people, like, they do, like, an indie game company or something, and they go, what's a adjective and what's a animal, or what's an adjective and what's a... cryptid. So I did Hairy Mermaid, but pretty much Silica Rotherwood is the name I use. That it's more me than anything else. But I have been given the name in the past of, like, Maddie. So I use Maddie often because more people know me as Maddie than they do Silica. Silica is like, how would you say it? Like the name of my soul, I guess you could say.
Well, now people who have watched us, they know the name of your soul first and foremost.
Yeah.
So at least if they start referring to you, then it's like, yes, I know who you are.
Yeah. So yeah, you can find me on Twitter, and I'm building like a website to put writing stuff down, and people have been telling me for literally years to get a YouTube, but it's a lot of work, and
it is.
yeah, it's just something I struggle with is putting in more effort than I physically have inside my body to put in, you know.
that is amiable.
That's spoon theory, I've heard it called. You know, you don't have enough spoons. Yeah. So I do what I can, and I've been telling stories, gosh, over 30 cycles around your sun. Yes, it's interesting though, because I've actually seen I've been around the sun 33 times, but I've seen 35 summers because I've traveled. So travel makes you older because you see more summers, if that's how you measure time. But by that same token, it means I've seen 2 less winters. So it's...
I mean, I was born and raised in a country that is all summer all the time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the equator, Malaysia. There's only one season, which is summer.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, there's also rain, but it's still hot. Anyway,
we
shall let you return to your home planet.
Well, I'm going to be here for a while, I think. You know, I'll see how long how long this human body lasts for, and do as much as I can inside it before I go home.
Yes. No, I'm not trying to chase you off planet. I think go back to the alien research lab.